Okay, so I got to make another one for my second niece because my two nieces are sisters. And I'm going to make one similar but different. We're also going to use a mask again, a slightly different one from the set I got. And I've bent up the sides the same way. What's different here on this one is I took pieces of cardboard and just cut out squares and glued them on with the gel medium. A lot of this is going to be very similar to what I did, so I'm going to do a fast-forwarded version. I have a stencil here that I'm going to use and with some texture paste and apply some texture on top of the cardboard. And then I'll let that dry and I'll glue everything, or I'll paint everything black, and or maybe I'll put some stones. I want them to be the same but different because the girls may be sharing a room at some point, you know, but I want them to be different enough but similar enough that no one's jealous of each other. You know what I mean? So I'm just using the texture paste and just applying some texture here and there. It doesn't need to be the full stencil. I mean, you can fill in the full stencil if you want to, but you don't need to at all. So I'm just going to do sections of it, putting it on pretty thick. Just scraping off little extra bits. I mean, so basically I just used a plain canvas. You could use a piece of wood, cardboard, a thick piece of cardboard. You could use the base, you know, and then I just cut up some cardboard and put it on top. So that's all pretty basic stuff. I mean, honestly, you could just cut out a square of cardboard and build a project off of that. I mean, you don't need to have a canvas. Everybody's got cardboard. And then get a thinner cardboard and cut little squares out or circles out or whatever you have. And just build it up with some stuff that will get texture, thinner and thinner things. String will give you texture. Embossing powder will give you texture. Bubble wrap will give you texture. Cheesecloth will give you texture. Ribbon. All kinds of things will give you texture. Just use what you have. So as you can see, I'm using the heat gun. It's just bubbling up a little bit. Trapping that air under it. And this next thing I'm going to use is very basic. This is drywall tape, the mesh fiberglass drywall tape. I'm going to use that as some texture. I was going to put a big strip, but then I was like, I don't really want to put a big strip. Keep with the square rectangle theme kind of thing. So this is just drywall tape. I think it costs $1 if you get cheap stuff, you know. It doesn't need to be dollar store stuff. And it's sticky, or mine is at least. It's sticky. So there we go. There's something that has texture. Tissue paper glued down gives you texture. Do not get stuck on what I'm using. Just have fun and use what you got. I'm going to use some twine, hemp would work, string, any kind of string. I'm going to wrap it around the canvas. There we go. There's texture too. So don't get stuck on, oh my God, I don't have that. Use what you have. It's all about bringing it together with color. It doesn't look right when there are 100 different colors. And I did, when my hot glue was hot, I did glue that down to the back of the canvas, that end right there. So now that I got the base, I'm going to coat it with black gesso so you can kind of, I don't know, it just makes it all come together. It's hard when things are different colors to see what you have going on. But please just use whatever you have. Don't get stuck on, I don't have any texture paste. Oh, well. I've made texture, like I said, with bubble wrap, with cheesecloth, with string. I've made texture with napkins, newspaper, sponges, those plastic bags that like fruit come in that are like mesh bags, nylons, old jeans and stuff, old jewelry pieces, pieces of wood. you know, pieces of metal, like from my father's garage. Just all kinds of stuff. Okay, so I painted everything with the mask. I'm going to use the gel medium and my leftover stones. Well, first I'm going to glue this down with the gel medium, a thick layer, and then some hot glue just to hold it in place first. I'm going to use those art stones again, and I'm going to use the ones that were kind of dried up and then sprinkle on top the other art stones. But, I mean, if you got like fish pebbles for your fish tank or anything, those could work. You know? Vase fillers. All kinds of stuff. Don't get, like I said, don't get stuck. People get so stuck that, oh, I don't have that, so I can't do it. So this is just the hardened ones that I'm just trying to build it up with. Might as well try to use it. I mean, God, if anything, you could roll little balls in polymer clay if you really wanted to have the circle texture. You know? And bake them as little balls and then just sprinkle them on. Little round beads, seed beads would work. You know? Styrofoam balls that the kids are making in that goopy stuff. Those little styrofoam balls. Beads would be perfectly fine. Sprinkle a bunch of beads on some glue. It would look very similar. Different size seed beads or any kind of round beads. And I've only done one coat of gesso. It's not all even, but that's fine. We'll be doing another coat after this stuff dries. And I'm just going to sprinkle on some of these. Which I know it's kind of a faraway view, so it's kind of hard for you guys to see that I'm sprinkling these on. And then once all of this dries, probably 24 hours, sometime tomorrow, when it's set, I'll paint another coat of black all over everything. And then we'll begin doing our embellishment part. I think I'll do blue for this one. I don't think one of the girls likes pink. I know one of them likes purple, and I think the other goes for blue. I don't think they go for pink as much. Like when I've done crafts with them and I have like pink yarn, blue yarn, purple yarn, I don't think they really choose pink. Okay, so this is what I'm going to use for behind the eye. I'm just using that leftover piece of gold mesh that I had from the purple project and using this sequin ribbon. I'm putting 2 layers of that down with the hot glue. I just have it on some wax paper just to help me glue it on. I think this is what I'm going to put behind the eyes instead of just the gold. A little different. Now, the little stone things are still wet, so I'm just getting things ready. I had this leftover bag that, I don't know, something came in, so I'm just going to cut it up. Just trying things out, you know, using what I have around my house. And then I realized, I was like, oh, you know what? Upstairs in my scrap Christmas stuff, I keep old like Christmas bags and stuff that people give gifts in. I had an old Christmas ribbon. So I'm going to take the tag off and unknot it. And I was like, that might even work. You know, but you could even glue this down. And that's the type of things that could give you texture. If you don't have texture paste, glue it down and then paint on top of it. So everything's dry now. It's the next day. And I'm going to spray this one. I honestly think for sprays you could use mica powders, because the Lindy's Art Sprays come with a powdery thing on the bottom, and when you get it home you mix water in it. The Ranger ones that I'm using now come as a liquid like this, but the Lindy's just come with a powder in a bottle and you put water in it when it arrives at your place. So I'm thinking if you took food coloring, you know, it's Easter with the egg coloring stuff. Food coloring with water and put a little mica powder, you might be able to achieve this same kind of thing. Or water, you know, a little bit of acrylic paint in a sprayer bottle with a bunch of water. you know, or just paint it or watercolor or use whatever you want to use. Pastels, chalk pastels, wax pastels, or oil pastels, acrylic paint, watercolor. I'm just using the sprays because I have them and I haven't used them in a couple of years, and why not? So it's dried, and I'm going to do a second coat here just to kind of bump it up. It does look more white on it, but in real life it's not. So I'm just adding some extra colors here and there. I'm just dragging it around all the seams and stuff because it's not spraying at the moment, but in a second it starts. So I really like the Ranger shimmer mist, but they don't tend to work. The sprayer doesn't work as well, but the color is gorgeous. But the Lindy's the sprayer bottles seem to be a better quality or something. I don't know. So I'm just doing different blues and greens here. Drying it a little bit with my heat gun. And I am going to be using some polymer clay flowers that I made out of Sculpey 3 a long time ago. I was just kind of playing with arrangement. I'm going to use some foam flowers and some paper flowers. Now with the polymer clay ones, if you want to use some sprays and stuff on them, you need to gesso them first because the sprays will bead up on it, on the plain polymer clay. Now these are made out of Sculpey 3, so they're not, I worry about them breaking in the future, and I'll do something about that in a minute to try to help that. So I take all of these flowers, the foam ones, the paper ones, the clay ones, and I just put them in a shoebox and spray them down. And even though it's not spraying well, I'm going to water this down in a minute to try to get better coverage. That's just some of the pearl one. And then just some water just to make it liquidy, and I'll kind of rub these paper ones around front and back. And I don't cover all the white, but enough. Some of them have wires on them, some of these flowers. I tend to buy them in white, and that way I can color them myself. If you buy a color, you're kind of stuck with a color. That's a foam one. And then I'll dry them with my heat gun. Now I'll show you in a minute how I made these polymer clay flowers. I used a fondant flower making kit on them that I bought a while back. So they're, you know, I take some scrap brown and I'm going to add some black to it to make it darker. And these are the rubber fondant flower making molds that I got on Amazon. And you can use whatever shape cutters. You could use round ones, teardrop shapes, whatever. I'm just going to go with hearts. A small, or a large, medium, and then a small. And just kind of cut them out of my sheet. This is on the setting 2 on my atlas. So not a thick setting, but not a thin setting either, because it'll thin out when you push it in these little rubbery silicone molds. And I move them around on the mold, like I'll put them in different spots so that way they get different kind of indents depending where on the mold you put it. So like I'll put one here this time, and then I'll put that one over there, and that way it gives me different texture. Now this one has a really fine texture, and I realized I wanted a couple of them to have deeper texture, so I'm going to use that one at the top there that's open on the upper left there. I'm going to use that one on a few of them. And that way if I use this one in the future, there's deeper grooves for color to sink into. And then this is, you know those disposable baking dishes you get at like Hannaford's, like the disposable sheet pans, and it's like kind of like thicker tin foil. I use that to give myself a rim. So I'm just pushing some clay down, that way I can stick the petals to it. And this is going to help me form the flowers. It's a little tall, so I'm cutting it down a little bit. And then I'm just going to lean them, and that way they'll kind of drape over this little tinfoil stuff. Honestly, you could take a sheet of tinfoil and just fold it up into a thin straight sheet and make a circle out of it. I mean, or a piece of cardboard even. A little piece of cardstock and tape it, make a circle out of it. Just to get your petals to kind of drape over. Just using a ball tool to push it down into that bottom piece that I laid down. That way there's a flat bottom for this all to stick to and for me to glue down later. Just have fun with it. These are kind of cool. A lot of fondant products work for polymer clay. So, you know, I got these on Amazon, this fondant flower making kit. It came with some cutters. You know, it has different flowers like roses, irises. I don't remember the other ones, but it has all different kinds of flowers you can make. That's what all those petals are up there, leaves. So they all give you different texture, which is neat. Again, that's what I started with polymer clay, is making embellishments like this rather than buying all those paper flowers and stuff. And you can make small ones too. I mean, you don't need to make huge ones. You can make small ones. So everything's dry now. I'm going to use some gel medium and hot glue. The hot glue will give me immediate stick. The gel medium will give me long-term hold. Like years hold. Hot glue can fail after, you know, a year or two. I think they'll like these. And if they share a room, they'll both go. And if they each have their own room, they're both different. So the flowers are pretty much dry, not 100%, but dry enough for me to stick them on so the glue can start setting. And you'll see with the Sculpey 3 ones, I really added a lot of gel medium to help bump up the strength of the flowers. Because I worry if one of the girls, you know, because they're still young, if they push on it, one of the petals will break off. Because I literally just dropped one on my carpet down here and it shattered. So I'm adding a lot of this glue that will dry clear around the petals just to help give some strength to it. If this was Primo, I probably would not do that. But because it's Sculpey 3, that's why I'm doing it. I could have made more flowers, but it is what it is. So on the paper ones and the foam ones, I just add a little gel medium and then some hot glue. That way it's stuck down firm now, because with gel medium, it would slide all around until it's set. This flower has a wire on it, so I'm kind of bending it so it holds it off the canvas stuff some. It sits up there all sitting at different levels. Some are flat, some are not. Again, playing with texture, you know, even with the flowers. You can make foam flowers at home, like the one on the upper right there right now. That's a foam one. I bought foam and made flowers myself. So you can buy foam and use an iron or a heat gun and bend the foam to make your own. They're pretty fun, actually. There's videos on YouTube on how to do it. So you'll see in 2 seconds with the gel medium, I'm going to smear the gel medium from these polymer clay flowers to the canvas. I did it on all 3 of the polymer clay ones just to help support that Sculpey 3. I'm just worried about it long term. And I guess if they ever break off, I can, you know, make a Primo flower and stick it there. I'm just trying to use what I already have at home. And I already used a couple of the bigger flowers I had on the purple one, because I wasn't planning on making 2 of these. Okay, and now I have some glass tiles here that I use for mosaic making. These ones are mirrored tiles. And I have some of those glittery ones off to the side that I didn't end up using. I thought the mirrors were cute, little mirror squares. And again, they're mirror squares for mosaics. I think they're like 1/4 inch square. Then this is a jewelry connector. It's a little flower. Silver one that I was trying to figure out. I'm only going to use one down there at the bottom. And I thought those added a little something shimmery. A little reflective, you know. And I'm only using hot glue on those because I think they should be strong enough. And if they ever fall off, you could just glue them back on easily, you know, in 5-10 years or something. And I thought it was pretty much done at this point. I'm going to use the Opal Magic and the Deco Art Metallic Luster waxes. This is turquoise in the Deco Art Metallic Luster. And then the Prima Opal Magic, I'm using turquoise satin and blue velvet. And again, just adding some more shimmer. And the Prima is Prima Marketing. It's a big company for mixed media, same with Finnabar. I mean, they're definitely not cheap products. So I'm just kind of smearing this stuff all around. But I think composition-wise, I thought it was pretty much done. But I did decide I needed a couple pipe cleaners because I have it on the other one too. That way they go more as a set. I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy. So again, just use what you have. In real life, this took me about 3 hours, not waiting for the set time of like the paint and glue. But I sped it up about 4 times the speed. Because the other video was longer. And I explained what I was doing, and I felt like in this one it was a lot of the same stuff.